Deep in the deserts of Soviet Uzbekistan, the ground itself was on fire. Not a forest fire, not a building fire. A fire that came from below the earth, a wound in the planet that no one knew how to close. For years, a natural gas well near the village of Bulik had been burning without pause, day and night, through every season. A column of flame rising from a broken pipe, fed by an underground reservoir that seemed endless. Engineers tried everything they knew. Nothing worked. The fire kept burning, the gas kept escaping, and the Soviet Union kept losing one of its most valuable resources, second by second, into the open sky. Eventually, a small group of scientists proposed something almost impossible to believe, something that had never been attempted for a problem like this. They wanted to stop the fire using a nuclear bomb, buried deep underground, detonated on purpose. In a country already living under the shadow of the Cold War, what happened next would change how the world thought about fire, engineering, and the raw power hidden beneath her. The village of Bulik sat on the edge of the Karakum Desert. Flat land, endless heat, and now, a fire that never went out. It started in 1963 when a drilling crew struck a massive pocket of natural gas beneath the sand. The pressure was far greater than anyone expected. Within seconds, the wellhead failed. Gas roared up through the broken pipe and ignited almost instantly. The explosion could be seen for miles. Engineer Pavel Volkov was among the first to reach the site. He later described the flame as a second sun rising from the ground. At first, officials believed it would burn out within days. It didn't. Weeks passed, then months. The fire kept growing, fed by an underground reservoir that seemed bottomless. Local shepherds abandoned nearby grazing land. The heat scorched the sand for hundreds of meters in every direction. At night, the glow lit up the horizon like a false dawn. Soviet engineers tried to smother the flames with heavy drilling mud. It failed. They tried explosives to collapse the well shaft. That failed too. Each attempt only seemed to make the fire angrier, as if the earth itself refused to be silenced. By 1965, the well had burned for nearly 2 years straight. Millions of cubic meters of valuable gas were being lost, disappearing into smoke and flame. Moscow was losing patience. And that is when a strange proposal reached the desk of Soviet officials. A proposal so extreme that some engineers at first assumed it was a joke. Use a nuclear device to seal the well from below. No one in the room was laughing for long. The idea came from a small team of Soviet nuclear physicists, men who understood explosions better than almost anyone on Earth. Their theory was strange, but simple. If a nuclear device were detonated deep enough underground, the force could crush the rock layers around the gas well, sealing the leak from below, like pinching a burning candle at its base. On paper, it made sense. In reality, no one had ever tried anything. Physicist Anatoly Bagdasarov was one of the men who reviewed the plan. He later admitted he had never seen a calculation both so elegant and so terrifying. The bomb would need to be lowered nearly 1.5 kilometers underground through a narrow borehole, drilled at a precise angle toward the burning well. One mistake in that calculation, and the device could miss its target entirely. Or worse, it could trigger something no one could control. Soviet officials weighed the risks in silence. The country was already racing the United States in nuclear tests. But this wasn't a weapons test. This was something else, a gamble disguised as an engineering solution. Some scientists in the room reportedly refused to sign off on the plan, not because they doubted the physics, but because they doubted what would happen if it failed in a populated region. Approval finally came from the highest levels of the Soviet government. The operation was given a quiet, almost bureaucratic name. Nothing about the paperwork hinted at what it truly involved. Drilling crews were sent back to Bulik within weeks. This time, they weren't there to stop a fire. They were there to bury a bomb beneath it. Drilling the new shaft was its own kind of danger. Crews worked within sight of the burning well, close enough to feel the heat on their skin every day. The angle had to be exact, a borehole aimed not straight down, but curving sideways underground toward the burning gas pocket itself. No margin for drift, no room for error. Engineer Viktor Semyonov supervised the drilling schedule. He later said the hardest part wasn't the heat. It was the waiting. Weeks turned into months as the shaft crept deeper. Every meter drilled brought them closer to placing a nuclear device directly beneath an active fire. Then came an unexpected problem. Underground temperatures near the well were far higher than normal. Rock that should have been stable was behaving strangely, shifting under the heat in ways the engineers hadn't planned for. If the borehole deformed even slightly, the device might never reach its intended position. Tensions on site began to rise. Some workers, according to later accounts, quietly questioned whether the operation could actually succeed. Officials from Moscow arrived to inspect progress in person. They said little, but their presence made it clear how much was riding on this attempt. Finally, the shaft reached its target depth, just over 1.5 kilometers beneath the desert floor. The nuclear device was prepared for transport, a weapon originally designed for destruction about to be used for something else entirely, to seal, not to shatter. As the device was lowered into the earth, engineers on the surface fell silent. No one spoke, because no one truly knew what would happen the moment it detonated. The detonation was set for September 30th, 1966. By then, every non-essential worker had been evacuated from the area. Only a small team remained at a safe distance, watching instruments instead of the horizon. At the appointed moment, the device was triggered remotely. Deep beneath the desert, a controlled nuclear explosion tore through the rock layers surrounding the well. On the surface, there was no fireball, no mushroom cloud, just a brief tremor. The ground shifted slightly, like a distant heartbeat. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then someone noticed it. The flame above the well was flickering. Engineer Pavel Volkov, who had watched this fire burn for nearly 3 years, later said it looked like the fire itself was struggling to breathe. Within moments, the towering column of flame that had lit up the desert sky for so long began to shrink. Then it went out completely. Silence spread across the site, an eerie, unfamiliar silence. After years of constant roaring fire, some workers reportedly wept. Others simply stood still, unable to process what they were seeing. The fire that had burned for nearly 3 years, resisting every previous attempt to stop it, had been extinguished in a matter of seconds. But almost immediately, a new question emerged among the engineers on site. Had the explosion actually sealed the gas reservoir below? Or had it only interrupted the fire temporarily? No one could be certain yet. Instruments needed time to confirm what had truly happened underground. And in a project already filled with uncertainty, one final test remained. The world was about to find out if the fire was truly gone, or if it would return. Days passed before anyone could be sure. Engineers monitored the well constantly, watching for even the smallest sign of gas escaping. Nothing came. No flame, no hiss of leaking gas, no warning tremor from below. The nuclear explosion had done exactly what the physicists predicted. It had crushed the surrounding rock layers, sealing the well from deep underground. The fire that had burned for nearly 3 years was gone, permanently. For the scientists involved, the relief was overwhelming. Physicist Anatoly Bagdasarov later said it was the first time in months he had slept through the night without thinking about the well. Word of the operation's success spread quietly through Soviet scientific circles. Officially, little was said to the public. The operation remained a footnote in Soviet industrial records for years, known only to specialists and a small number of local witnesses. But among engineers, its significance was impossible to ignore. It proved something that had never been demonstrated before, that a controlled nuclear detonation, precisely calculated and carefully planned, could stop a disaster that conventional methods could not touch. In the years that followed, Soviet engineers used the same technique on a small number of other runaway gas wells, always deep underground, always far from populated areas. Each time, the same strange outcome, a raging fire, silenced by a single, deliberate tremor from below. Erta Bulik faded back into the desert landscape. The scorched earth slowly recovered. The glow that once lit up the night sky was gone for good. What remains is a quiet, almost unbelievable chapter in the history of engineering, a reminder that sometimes the most extreme solutions come from facing a problem no one else could solve. If you want to see more stories like this, real events, real risks, real history, consider staying with us.